Chemical water pollution is when toxic chemicals enter the water cycle or when natural nutrients build up in unwanted amounts and become soluble in water, thus harming our water supply and affecting other living organisms. This polluted water is then inadequate for agriculture, drinking, recreation, other human purposes, and animal habitats. There are three main sources that contribute to chemicals polluting water. These pollutants can harm many animals in different ways. Lastly, it is a huge process to remove these chemicals from the water so it is safe for human consumption.
There are two different types of chemical water pollution. There are point sources of pollution, which is pollution that can be controlled or regulated easily, such as industrial waste or sewage wastewater. On the other hand, there are non-point sources of pollution, which cannot be easily controlled and are often hard to change. This could include urban runoff, nutrient pollution, or chemicals in fertilizers. Industrial waste is toxic chemicals and pollutants that are released from industries and manufacturing factories. More specifically, this can include iron and steel production, organic chemicals, the pulp and paper industry, and most other industries that manufacture products. Industries first use water in their manufacturing processes. This water then comes into contact with toxic chemicals, heavy metals, radioactive waste, and organic sludge. Since many industries do not have proper disposal policies, the water is drained into rivers, canals, and the oceans. This results in high amounts of chemical pollutants such as lead, sulfur, nitrate, mercury, and many more that damage our water supply. Sewage and wastewater is mainly the water that is released from households, as well as ships who dispose of their wastewater. Wastewater that is released from houses that is not treated properly contains dangerous bacteria and chemicals. These can include pathogens, which cause many health problems, as microorganisms thrive in the sewers and can infect the water, which then becomes very dangerous to consume. Another main cause of wastewater is due to cruise ship excretions. A typical large cruise ship can release 255,000 gallons of wastewater and 30,000 gallons of sewage every day. The wastewater and sewage these ships release contain oils, bacteria, pathogens, and many other hazardous materials that become soluble in the water. Since wastewater contains so much bacteria and can be a breeding ground for many organisms, a common disease associated with unclean water is malaria. Urban runoff is a source of water pollution because infected water is washed away from roads, lawns, parking lots, and other ground surfaces into sewers or directly into large bodies of water. This type of pollution is a non-point source because it cannot easily be controlled or regulated, unlike something like industrial waste. Urban runoff water contains dirt, oil, chemicals, and lawn fertilizers. The lawn fertilizers and pesticides are one of the biggest pollutants as they contain nitrogen and phosphorus chemicals. Farmers and homeowners that use pesticides on their crops or lawn are contributing to water pollution if not used carefully, especially if used in excessive amounts. Then, when it rains, the stormwater washes these pesticides into the closest body of water. These high levels of nutrients, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, can cause organisms to grow faster than can be supported, such as algae.
Different types of chemical pollution affect animals in different ways. The main issue that accompanies industrial waste is the release of chemical contaminants into the environment. These contaminants are mainly carried by pipes and are released into nearby lakes and ponds. Industrial wastes kill many small aquatic animals, such as frogs, fish, tadpoles, and more. Thus, the food chains of various ecosystems are disrupted. This is because predators will be forced to either consume poison and dead prey or leave their natural habitat to find food in other waters. Often this leads to sickness and death of these animals due to them not being able to adapt to changed water temperatures as well as being exposed to new predators. Another issue is the presence of huge quantities of mercury in water because of industrial waste. It is a problem because too much mercury leads to hormonal imbalances and glandular damage, which results in unusual behavioral shifts. Also, mercury is a toxic metallic chemical that reduces reproductive functions and the growth and development of animals that are continuously exposed to high amounts of it. A type of sewage disposal that most people overlook is that on cruise ships. Due to relaxed laws, cruise ships have been operating with little to no environmental regulations. This has caused a great deal of damage to sensitive marine life. Current regulations allow cruise ships to legally dump untreated sewage and other waste freely into the ocean as long as they are 3 miles from shore. Since this toxic waste contains bacteria, medical waste, oils, detergents, heavy metals, and other harmful substances, cruise ships are infecting the oceans with things that put aquatic life at risk. The use of pesticides and fertilizers on places like farms, lawns, and golf courses has increased by a high percentage over the last 50 years, causing serious environmental consequences. Chemical runoff from farms is leaking into nearby streams, waterways, and groundwater, killing thousands of insects and fish. The presence of fertilizers in the water changes the balance of nutrients in ecosystems, resulting in excessive growth of algae. When these algae flourish because of nutrient pollution in the water, they produce toxins that poison aquatic organisms. Other algae species clog the gills of fish and aquatic invertebrates. When people become exposed to algae-infested waters or consume fish or shellfish poisoned by algal toxins, they can become ill and can even die. To make matters worse, as these algae die, they sink to the bottom of lakes and rivers, where the bacteria that decompose them use up the oxygen in the water, making the water inhabitable for aquatic animals.
To regulate the discussed issues, there are industrial waste disposal sites dispersed around the world. These sites are able to safely transport industrial wastewater to a specialized treatment facility. More specifically, to filter out chemicals from targeted bodies of water, it undergoes a process at a water treatment plant. 1. As the water enters, it goes through a traveling screen. This removes large particles and debris. 2. The water then goes through coagulation and flocculation. This is the process of water changing to a semi-solid by adding small particles to the water that cause a precipitate to form. The particles that form the precipitate are called floc particles. 3. The next step is to allow settling to occur. This is called sedimentation. This process is where the heavy floc particles settle to the bottom of the water supply. This is able to occur because the floc particles weigh more than the free water particles. 4. The clear water that is left on top goes through the next process. This is the filtration step, where the water passes through many filters of different pore sizes and structures, such as gravel, charcoal, and sand. This filters out particles in the water that have been dissolved. This includes parasites, viruses, dust, bacteria, and chemicals. 5. The water then enters the disinfecting stage. The water may be disinfected using a chlorine or chloramine solution. This helps to kill any lingering bacteria, parasites, or viruses. It helps to ensure the water is safe to drink with no germs in it. 6. Other chemicals like oxygen, for example, may be added to correct taste and color problems. 7. After that, the water enters the softening stage where calcium hydroxide can be added to precipitate the calcium and magnesium ions that are in or were added to the water.
8. Some municipalities will add fluoride to the water. The fluoride helps to strengthen teeth enamel. 9. Chlorine is added once more to kill any lingering microorganisms. The pH level must be slightly basic, as metallic pipes will corrode if the water is even slightly basic. 10. Ammonia is added to stabilize the chlorine. This helps it stay dissolved in the water for longer. 11. The final step once the water is disinfected is for it to be pumped to a storage container, like a water tank. The water is then able to be pumped to homes and buildings, as it is clean and safe to drink. 3 ways you can start to reduce chemical water pollution today is by 1. Limiting the amount of detergents and bleaches you use in your washing machine and dishwasher. 2. Not disposing of fat or grease from cooking or any type of household cleaning products by pouring them down the sink. 3. Limiting your use of pesticides and never pouring these chemicals or automotive fluids down sewer drains.